This is just the beginning. Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. It's a different day, but same concept. It's Tuesday, 8 p.m. Welcome to the Online Darts Live Lounge with me, Phill Bars, Jack Garwood, and Lee Joyce. Apologies for no show yesterday, but I'm sure you all understand the reasons why. However, we return, gentlemen, 24 hours later, same concept. Are we ready?
I'm knackered. I'm struggling today. I made the mistake of staying up to watch the first half of the first NFL game last night, which started at 12:30, and it turned into 4 a.m.
Ouch.
And then I had to be up for work this morning. So if I'm a little bit grouchy, it's not because I've got to spend the night with Lee and Phill. I'm just a little bit tired.
That's
on the plus side,
a standard. Isn't that a standard live lounge? Miserable, moaning, grouchy. That's Dob. That's what we use, isn't it?
I never moan. I reason with idiots.
Stupid.
Don't do something stupid then. If you're going to be stupid, I'm going to tell you. It's 4 minutes past. What am I doing? Go away.
On the plus side, if he's grouchy, we'll put 10p in the meter, press go, and enjoy the fireworks.
Yeah, there might be a few tonight, maybe. It's not as if it's been a quiet week.
If you're going to be stupid, I'm going to tell you stupid.
Yeah, look, it's not been a dull week in darts, that's for sure. Chat room, welcome along, everyone. Bob was first in. How are we doing? Owen, Adrian, Kieran, Alex, welcome along. Blue Hope Bridge, how are we doing? Rose is in. Dennis, Laura, and Maisie are in, of course. Welcome along. Happy birthday, Laura, as well. Max, Matthew, Robbo, good evening, one and all. We've just shared some links on social media, so if you see them, make sure you give them a share or a retweet to let people know we are live. If you haven't yet, make sure you subscribe and give us a thumbs up as well. It's much appreciated. We're only about 50 away from 28k. It's bold, but I wonder, can we get 50 new subs in tonight to hit 28k tonight? Little challenge for everyone if you haven't subscribed yet. God will be pleased that is all the non-ranked action for the year now concluded.
No.
What have we missed?
Well, the Grand Slam shouldn't be ranked. It's a piece of crap.
But it is. So.
So you've gone from moaning about non-rant events to moaning about rant events that shouldn't be rant and should be non-rant.
Correct.
Oh, everyone, it's going to be a good few hours here. We can have Gob on a rope here. But the non-ranked action is over. It is all ranking action between now and the beginning of January. I know there was a lot of talk around it. They're all talking about that shiny Hill gob again at the weekend.
Moswell Hill has never been shiny. You can call the palace at the top of it shiny, but the hill is definitely not shiny.
Good evening, Mark. How are we all doing? First of all, chat room, did you enjoy the World Series finals at the weekend? We're obviously going to go through it all in a minute as well. But before we go into the nuts, bolts, the ins and outs, boys, how would you assess the World Series finals?
Go on, Lee, before I say something else stupid in the first 10 minutes.
No, does often turn whatever you say into a positive. Because it's not going to be positive out of your mouth, let's be honest. So we'll start with you.
Why? I thought it was okay. Look, I'm a little bit different.
Okay.
Well, it is okay, isn't it? It is just a little bit okay. It's televised darts. ITV were back at an actual reasonable time slot, albeit they used ITV3, which, I mean, sort of goes against why they haven't used it in any other event when they've had a clash before. If you can use it this weekend, you can push Power off for a little bit because you've got Minder on ITV4 to show at 6 o'clock. Then you could definitely do that for every other event throughout the year, even if barely anybody's watching it, and just run it as a delayed coverage later on as well. Absolutely no issue with that. That's point number one. That's in the UK. Everyone else is fine. Much noticed compared to the last World Series event that Dan Dawson was back in commentary. I think he's absolutely awesome. That New Zealand event missed him an awful lot, and I think he was class to get an ITV shot this weekend. Standard-wise, I thought the darts delivered pretty well. There was a few names and a few games that didn't, but let's be honest, they were the ones that we looked at the qualifier and went, how on earth have you done that? And I'm not really looking forward to that one. And for once, it pretty much played out that way. And actually, even if you don't take an awful long look at the tournament, there's optimism for the rest of the year. Gezzy superb, Johnny Clayton managing to win games still, even though we've been saying about just how tired he looks for the rest of the year. Van Gerwen beaten in a quality performance, but he's won 2 of the last 3 TV titles. Peter Wright looks assured back up on stage again. Like, there is positivity for the rest. Even James Wade was winning games, by the way, who has been terrible since he spent that night in hospital in Germany. He has had a crap 6 months on tour, but even he returned to winning ways on TV darts and look assured and took Kelvin Price pretty deep, actually, for a performance that perhaps wasn't at the level that you need or expect from Wadey to go that. He was doing Wadey things again. Even at the other end of the spectrum, look, it was not mid-90s, going to be a top 16 professional player in the PDC average. But Fallon Sherrick's finishing showed just why she's been given the opportunities that she's got. Because up on that stage, in front of TV cameras, if she's on it, her finishing is genuinely one of the best in the world. We've seen it all over. When she took Dimmy apart from behind previously, absolutely unbelievable. And we saw it again in glimpses against Peter Wright. Ridiculous. So, no, go on, make that positively.
that was very positive, and probably the 2 points that you haven't picked up on about the weekend are actually, for me, probably the 2 negative ones, which for me the fans still question marks about, and I know you deliberately left that out for me. And the second one, just as you spoke about certain players down in win, one player who hasn't to then in Gary Anderson, I'm seriously concerned about Dando. The more I'm seeing him, I'm just getting more and more concerned about him. I know you've spoken about certain players down in win there, Clayton's, Rowan, Wade, and I know we'll touch on to the names in a minute, but serious concerns about Gary Anderson right now.
To be fair, we'll touch on Gary now before we go into the games. The more concerning and worrying thing is I messaged you boys, an hour before the programme started and said, looks like Gary's using new darts. Because in the press room, we're lucky enough that we have 2 TVs. We've got a stat screen and then we've got the one with the action on. But a lot of the time we see the ITV or Sky rehearsals on this as well when they're doing sound checks and everything like that. And then when the players are up on stage, because they get to go and practice, Then we saw a few clips of that, and instantly I noticed that Gary was using, or it looked like new darts. Didn't get a good view. I sent you boys a picture, didn't I? I said, these look new. Turned out they were. The fact they were from his range darts, we found them, $24.99 from Argos, and it was literally the setup that come out of the box. The flight and stem was the ones that come with the darts. It was like, it wasn't even his. Does that make sense? It just seemed a really weird play.
Well, it screams very much like New York did, that Gary lost his darts again and went to a shop and had in ones he could get out of a packet.
Yeah.
I don't think he's ever thrown them before. And something tells me that he's forgotten his darts, misplaced his darts, and would get in trouble with his manufacturer if he didn't throw his own darts again.
Quite possibly.
Sound familiar? Sound familiar?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Someone alluded to it in the chat. It's about the darts, obviously within a question and stuff like that, but it's his attitude to the sport right now is, for me, is where the question mark's there. What he's done, obviously, throughout his career is outstanding, and there's always that sort of conversation of where he fits within the top 10 conversation, because he's in probably everyone's top 10, but it's just his commitment to the sport right now isn't the same levels as where it was before. And those are the question marks for me around Gary Anderson. The fact he's using those type of darts, let's be honest, he wasn't practicing with them all week, was he? If he was practicing at all.
He did have a practice with Ryan Searle on the Wednesday. I know that.
I'm going to have a wild guess and say it wasn't with them darts.
I don't know. I don't know. But I know he did have a practice with Ryan Searle on the Wednesday. But yeah, look, it was an interesting one. The dart just didn't look right at all for me. It was almost like a Fallon dart, the way it was a bit fatter in the middle and then tapered towards the end. And yeah, look, it just wasn't there. And it's hard to think. And barring a miracle of some sort, Gary Anderson will not be at the Grand Slam of Darts this year. Which, if you'd have said that a few years ago, would have seemed unthinkable that he hasn't qualified.
Still needs and wants to win as well, isn't it?
Yeah. And he's not
That's
there.
the one that evades. Yeah.
He pretty much has to get to the final of the World Grand Prix. A tournament where you have to hit two doubles in a game. He's going to have to get to the final.
Or the qualifier.
If he goes.
Yeah.
But we'll talk about that more later. Jamie in the chat room says, see you, Phill, on Sunday in the supermarket. Yeah. A point here, a supermarket that doesn't take Visa or MasterCard. Absolutely ridiculous.
Where? In Amsterdam?
Yeah. I was with
What if you do it?
Smithy.
There's one right at the train station, which is right next door.
Yeah, but we had to go shopping for players, so we went to the supermarket.
I went
And they
shopping
didn't
with
take-
Vincent in there. It was lovely.
Ridiculous. But we'll come on to the actual event itself. The World Series of Darts Finals. The World Series for 2022 is now concluded, and this was how round one looked. Evening, Charlie. Hope you are good. Look, this first one was Danny Baggish. Will be thinking, how did this one get away? Because he was in a good position and kind of blew it.
Yes. And there was a lot of talk about this one because didn't he do that? He started acting up a little bit to the crowd and probably relaxing that little bit too much and enjoying himself. And I guess if you're a World Series invite at your home event, say a Tim Poozy at an Australian event, and you're leading in the first round and whatever, go and have a bit of fun, because chances are you're not going to be on TV very often at that point. Unless you make the move over, go and change the tour card and whatever, you've got a chance to go and make a name for yourself. And do you know what? you'll probably get more recognition and everything from going and having a little bit of fun up on that stage in front of PDC players and whatever than you would going up there seriously and perhaps going close in the end. Danny's a pro, and whilst he says he's always going to enjoy it, playing the game, etc., you're doing it for your dinner, and just secure that result. Just work your way in there, because eventually these first round losses will add up to the point where you just don't know what you're doing on TV. It won't matter what you try. It won't matter how you prepare. You've tried literally everything, and that's when your head starts to go. It's a little bit like, I'm going to compare it a bit to Glenn Durrant's fall off, where he's tried so many different things and he's almost overanalyzed it. And if you get to the point where every TV appearance is the same, no matter what you do before it, you start wading into trouble almost.
Yeah, agreed. Jamie Hughes against Dave Chisnell. Look, this one, boys, he went pretty much as we all said last week. Chizzy was just too strong for Yozza in the end.
Yeah, he was. There was just too many missed doubles for Yozza, especially early on in this game. That scoreline, not saying it would have, the result would have changed, but it certainly could have been a closer game. Yozza just missed too many for me, but Chizzy looked good at this stage, and the result probably went as most people would have predicted, with a halfway win for Chizzy.
Yeah. The next one, again, as expected, Damon Heta, too good for Gordon Mathers. Look, Chizzy put up a good display, but went as expected. The next one is the interesting one for me. Hopai Puhau will be kicking himself. Yes, he has played very well, but as a professional darts player, golf, like you just said, and a sportsman, this is the one that got away, and he had an unbelievable opportunity to beat one of the world's best in Dirk van Dijvenbode, and it went missing.
Yeah, it did just that little bit, didn't it? And you couldn't. There's pressure enough on someone like Hal Piper's shoulders, because he's played some very, very good darts on TV and been very, very close a number of times in the last 18 months. We saw it at the WDF, we've seen it at other World Series events, whatever, and he seems to be getting this reputation of being the bridesmaid and never the bride. And this sort of happened once again. And look, I get there's that little bit more pressure on him playing against a Dirk-inspired crowd. I get that there's that little bit more pressure that he's building up. But again, much like Baggish earlier, he's got to break that cycle soon. He's got to start getting over the line, because that's when you start to relax into tournaments. When you've done it once, you can do it again and again.
Yeah, completely. Look, he's played some really good stuff, but he needs that win on a big TV game. Interesting, this next one. We have so many talking points in one game, it is almost unreal. First of all, the Soldier got the better of the African Warrior. It was close, it was tight, but let's be fair, when it mattered, when it really mattered, Boise, Devon's last leg was horrific. 2, we had the much talked about shoes, which was interesting and very much split social media. And then straight off the back of losing, I wasn't a fan of Devon's tweet, if I'm being honest. Thanks for the World Series, blah blah blah. I'm now off to the African qualifier, or however it was worded, as if tour card holders playing on substitute ways to get in the world wasn't topical enough at the moment. So many points off of that one game.
Yeah, I guess the first one was, you said it was a close game. Let's be honest, it should have been even closer, because we should have had a last night with Devon missing the bid number to, I think, double 16s, then leave double 8s, missed another 3 at it, then the 4s, and Leonard Dage just punished. Wasn't great himself on the outer ring, but just slightly better than Devon, and generally mid part of the game was kind of even. It was literally just on those doubles, and it's just worrying when you're seeing someone down to a board with 3 darts in hand, and you're watching it thinking, I'm not sure he's going to hit. And when it's a professional, you should be thinking quite the opposite, and that's going to happen. But there was times, and there with Devon, the second one on the trainers, I think that's going to always be split. I know we're all on the one side, but he's looking at ways to improve his game, and at the moment, where his game is, there's huge improvements needed. And if he thinks that to give him an extra % or two, then fair play, go for it. But for me, obviously, I'm not a huge fan. And then, thirdly, I'm with you a bit on the tweet. None of us agree with the fact that Tortard, Holdeth, and Owen qualify for the world through a different route, just on the basis of how much money they can then go on and make. We've seen Devon Doon have a run to, I want to say, the third round, maybe the fourth round of the Worlds. How important that would be for him this year, but the impact that has on everyone else in the Tortard holder who's not been able to qualify through a similar route than he has. And he hasn't qualified yet, but if he does, I'm assuming he's red hot favourite to do. It just seemed a bit hasn't really thought the tweet through before we sent it. But I'm fairly confident he'll be going there and qualifying, just only comparing that on the basis of what we've seen from his World Club partners over previous years, that he's still that step or two ahead of those. But yeah, I don't agree with that. But that's back to the Dame. There's still worrying signs there for Devon. And for me, the biggest worrying signs are on the later in the 180s. There was a couple in there and the storing wasn't too bad. Yes, there was a fair few 60s in there, but there was in and around the bed. But the Dublin needs a lot of work on.
The worrying is he has to stop the slide, because we all know over the next year and a bit, his tour card is in danger right now. If he doesn't stop this slide,
how he's playing, yeah, he's going as he's going to be red hot favourite for the South African qualifier. I'm sure he's just on the basis of who else will be in that field. But the added pressure in his current form will be higher than it's ever been. Yes, we still expect him to come through. If he doesn't come through that, then alarm bells are even louder than what they are right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Then all good, mate. I had some Euros on me, but I just tried to just use my card for everything normally. And then, arguably, the tie of the first round, the world champion, Peter Wright, in as an unseeded player, taking on Fallon Sherrick. Obviously, couldn't use her nickname this weekend for, again, obvious reasons. This was a good game, and this was a lot closer, God, than a lot of people anticipated, thought. There was a lot of chat on social beforehand that this was going to be 6-0, 6-1. But, again, Fallon, it's a noticeable trait now that when she plays someone better, she raises her game. But, again, that's also, it's a good trait, but it's also something that she needs to address and sort it out when she's not playing people in the top 8.
Yeah, 100%. Stats-wise, this is not close match at all. Peter Wright's averaged 103 for a large part of the match. I think he might have been finished there. Fallon was 88 by the end of it, I think.
Yeah, 88, yeah.
A big standout is the fact that she was 4 from 4 on the doubles. That kept her in touch. She was solid on her own throw, apart from the one leg where she was broken, obviously. And Peter was pretty similar on his own as well. And it was just the nature of how solid he was on his own throw that made this an almost impossible task, because he was not giving up chances at all on that throw of his. Not convinced by the change of darts a little bit. They were the old Whitlock style ones, however you want to describe them or whatever. Hopefully he gets this tinkering phase out the way. And look, if he's messing around now and he's back to a straight barrel dart, i.e. one of the 2 sets he's won the two of the last 3 World Championships with, I'll be well happy come Christmas.
Yeah. And then this one was an unbelievable tie, and it all spun around in just a couple of minutes. First of all, Matt Campbell, congratulations to him. First time we've seen the real Matt Campbell on TV for a long time. We've seen him do it on the floor, but he silenced the home fans and the home favourite Vincent van der Voort. At 3-3, Vincent missed 2 darts at tops to break. Matt held and then broke the next throw, which was the killer, Boise. But look, Vincent was Mr. Consistent still. 96.5 average, good from him. But it was also great to see Matt Campbell producing the darts we know he can.
Yeah, probably on TV, it's the best I think we've seen Matt Campbell. This was probably my pick of the first round games. I thought it was a very, very good game. And not from, I'm sure there's going to be someone that will jump at me to say, I'm sure he's averaged better than 95 on TV, but actually the game as a whole, the holding at that time, then breaking Vincent, playing against the crowd, who were at that time were fully just following the Dutch players, obviously with a few more drinks in them. But I thought Matt Campbell was sensational to get over that line. Then final 3 or 4 legs was the best we've seen of him, and probably there's still more there. But this is probably what we've expected of Matt for an awful long time, and hopefully we'll start seeing more and more of this because we know he's a top player. We know he can certainly push on and push up the rankings, but it's more performances like this, and that's still on the double, so they're over the line.
And then the final game, again, not really much to talk about. I was expecting a little bit more from Simon Whitlock. If I was being honest, only averaged 90, and Noppy was fairly comfortable. Is the thing. But that was round number 1. Moving on, round number 2, and also to do with the scheduling. Tell me the love affair with Gary Anderson's over without telling me that he's now done an afternoon session at the match play and first on the round 2 sessions. Again, a few years ago, unthinkable that Gary Anderson wouldn't be in one of those prime spots. But again, we spoke about it earlier. Dirk was comfortable in this game, Gob.
Yeah, pretty solid. And I think when we were predicting this last week, we said that was a likely and potential matchup. And at that point, the head-to-head record in recent years on TV is not in Gary's favour at all anyway. So this was always a prediction that we potentially saw come in. 3 from 15 on the outer ring. He's not a million miles away scoring-wise to what Dirk produced, but it wasn't Dirk's brilliant swashbuckling best, should we say. There's always going to be glimpses. There's always going to be moments from Gary. A man of that quality is always just going to produce something. I mean, Bob Anderson's got 20, 30 years on him, and he's still chucking in 180s at Circus Tavern. He's still going to get glimpses. You don't suddenly just forget how to play and average 60 for the rest of your life. But those glimpses are becoming less and less right
now. And then James Wade getting the better of Leonard Gates. Again, this would be what you call a wading performance, Boise. The average wasn't there, but never looked at any danger either.
The man just wins with a lower average it seems more than anyone else. I know it was proven, it was on about the other week that it's not quite the case, but he's certainly in that mix. It was just the start of the game. Leonard Gates took too much time to get into it. Wade was 5-1 up, and by then it's game over because you just know Wade only needs that opportunity to seal the win, and he'll take it. He's not a player who gets nervy over that finishing line. So the start was the key in this one. But generally, I think Leonard Gates, from a World Series event, if he would have offered the past few months, he would have snapped it off, winning in America, getting to the second round as well in there, and then obviously beating Devon in the first round. Generally, it's been a very successful few months for Leonard Gates.
Right, now where to start on this one. We will address the rabbit or the elephant in the room at the end of the World Series because we have got a clip of Joe Cullen.
There's a big difference between a rabbit and an elephant, Phil.
We'll address it at the end. We have got a clip from Joe Cullen, so we will address the crowd situation. First of all, we'll do the World Series as a whole before we take out the little individual parts of it because I've got a few clips teed up for it, which will be interesting. I'm still not quite sure how Dave Chisnell did not win this game 6-2. Talk about use all your lives at once, Gob. Chizzy was in complete control. The crowd got involved, everything else, and the rock star, as he said, it's not my problem. I'm there to win games. And he did.
Yeah, look, it's the same in pretty much any other sport. Whenever somebody gets fortunate or lucky. Sometimes you just have to accept that is part of sport. Do I want to accept that the crowd getting involved with that is part of this game? Not particularly. But once it did happen, Joe Cullen's not the one making those noises, and if Dave can't handle that, then that's between Dave, the officials, and Dave himself, basically. So yeah, you want to talk about the crowd at the end. I didn't enjoy it. Last time I was there, I spent some time sat in the crowd. It was hostile, shall we say. And the more and more we see things like this, the issue is that as long as the PDC aren't a governing body and they're an organisation that exists to sell tickets and promote and whatever, then they're not going to stop anything, because we're sat here talking about the crowd behaviour and what it did to this game, rather than just going, oh, it's a good game of darts and Chizzy won 6-2.
Yeah. Moving on, Ryan Joyce massively improved his performance from round 1, Boise, and caused an upset, beating Dimitri van den Berg 6-2. And Dimitri, there was obviously a few issues during the week that we saw on social and whatever, that he had another health scare and everything like that. So maybe not 100%, but Ryan Joyce did what he needed to do.
Yeah, that maybe is the case in this one. I think for Ryan Joyce, looking at it at the start of the week, I think many of us were unsure if he'd get through the Danny Badish game. He got through that one, and then he got through Dimitri with a very, very convincing and very good win. Ryan Joyce, that yes, Dimitri's health is something that people are concerned about, as we've seen, obviously, the break before his semi-final last week and the statement that came out last week. But Ryan Joyce done what he needed to do and done it in a very, very convincing style. Hopefully it's little sort of break now before the Grand Prix. I know we've got the Euro Tour this weekend, but we'll give Dimmy time just to get ready and just hopefully make sure that everything's okay, that when he's back on the board, that he's fit and healthy and back on the board, and he's not having any sort of issues that we've seen documented currently.
Yeah. Then Matt Campbell, again, will be kicking himself. There was an opportunity in this one. However, God, what a last leg from the world number 1. What a set of stones. And it could have been a completely different weekend, but under pressure, he lives up to his nickname, and he was the Iceman in that 11th leg.
Yeah, he's like Thanos, isn't he? He just sits there going, I'm inevitable in these last leg deciders. It don't matter what his opponent does, he just seems to find. It's always that second visit as well. Like, there are a lot of these last leg deciders where Gezi goes off 60 or 58 or whatever. But that second is always a big response when his opponent has crumbled under the pressure, knowing that Gezi's just hit a crack one. And it happens every single time. It's getting to MVG levels on the Euro Tour, isn't it?
Yeah, I agree. And look, Gezi, there's 2 good interviews, or 2 good clips from Gezi, which we'll discuss at the end as well. A couple of interesting talking points. MVG survived a banana skin against Damon Heta. It was one of those ones that he was in control, but just kept letting Heta back in, Boise. But in the end, got the job done 6-4.
Yeah, it was exactly that. MVG just got over the line, but you always felt he was down to him with Damon Heta. And then if you're looking back as the World Series as a whole, performance-wise hasn't been too bad, but results-wise, if Damon Heta with 4 events, you told him only picked up 1 win, or we would have even discussed only 1 win, then there's certainly a worry there. Just for him to get back to winning ways, his performance is there, but then he's getting close to MVG at 4 apiece, but we're all watching it sort of still expecting MVG to get over the line. MVG's in some very good form, obviously, picking up the TV titles he has done, but that is equally the fact that Damon Heta just isn't as good as he was pre and during World Cup. And that's probably shown with the 85 average in this one, in a very disappointing World Series event. But I'm sure he will come back. I'm sure he'll be back competing. It's just getting those few wins and it might be that it's someone who just needs a Pro Tour or a run of Pro Tours just to get a few games under his belt and hopefully get 2 or 3 wins on the spin, and that will just bring that confidence back. As I said, numbers-wise, stats-wise, they're not too bad at all. He has had a bad run in the Super Series, losing 2 of those 6-5, and then going out to MVG here 6-4. But we are talking about when you're playing in these, coming up against possibly the top 8 in the world, so you need to be at the top of your day.
Performance of the weekend coming up next. It was a wow moment for Michael Smith. 6-4 win over the world champion Peter Wright. 107.40 average gob. Bully Boy was just sensational.
Yeah, and it's that sort of level that we don't see, not that we don't see an awful lot, we just don't see enough from him, because he's definitely got it in the locker and he's so free-flowing and he makes the game look so easy that you just want to see that little bit more from him and just make it look that easy. And look, I'm still going to be positive on Peter Wright here, by the way. He's still averaged 102, 103 again. He's 4 from 14 on the double, so he's missed chances with a new set of darts once again. But that scoring from him at the minute is just as brutal. And like I said at the start of the show, I'm really excited for the back end of the year, how the big 3 are going to play out, how everybody else is looking to peak at the same time. And this is another example of it as well.
And then the final one, Johnny Clayton worked out where the camera was in this game. A 6-2 win over Daynop at 104.39 average. Johnny Clayton, look at the board, hit, point to the left, Boise. It was textbook.
Yeah, it wasn't just this game. There was quite a few, and I guess we spoke about it, and I know I predicted him to go all the way to the final, but there were signs that at least Clayton's game was coming back this weekend, and I am with Dob. The top 3 seem to be in a great space at the moment to don't push on and lift more. But if there's one person who we've seen over the past couple of years who's going to upset that apple cart, it's going to be Johnny Clayton. And this weekend will only give him confidence. And with this win, that was certainly his double hitting was spot on. He knew exactly where that camera was once more. And it seemed like some of those, he was that confident he was going to hit it. The point was there before he hit the double, but it was a very, very good win against the Dutchman once more.
Then moving on, quarterfinals, and first up. Again, I'm surprised they didn't go. First of all, I thought the whole day would have been in draw bracket order, but wasn't.
Yeah. It's very bizarre for it to not be. I don't understand why. Once you get to this format, then everybody's got in similar enough spacing to know when they're playing, prep time, gaps in between matches, and whatever else. So.
Yeah, completely. But first up, it was the world number 1 defeating Joe Cullen, and again, it was Cullen's finishing that kept this one close, God, because you look at the gap in the averages was around 10 points, I think it was off the top of my head, which kept it close, but it was a game that Gezi dominated for large parts.
Well, it was 3-0 down to Gezi, was averaging 120, and to get back into that first break at 3-2 was staggering enough. I don't think Joe was at his best at all this weekend, and to be honest, I don't think Joe was at his best for the last 2 weekends either. He picked up a Euro Tour, but the big takeaway from the end of that point was I've won and I'm not at my best on the Euro Tour. And we spoke about how some players have got a little bit of a hangover or are knackered from all the travelling, all the media work that comes with playing on the World Series. And it's been a new experience for Joe as well. So I think perhaps he's one of those that suffered from it, that Euro Tour perhaps deceived a little bit. Not that to win a Euro Tour, you still got to play well and you still got to take your chance, you still got to be switched on. But that top level perhaps needs a couple more weeks just to refresh and go again.
Then one of the most bizarre games I can remember seeing on an afternoon session. Dirk van Dijvenbode wins a last leg decider against Ryan Joyce, Boise, and at one point, Dirk looked irresistible, dropped off a cliff, let Joyce in, and then found a 180 in the last leg from absolutely nowhere to win it.
Yeah, there's an argument, especially at the end, that both of these should have gone on to win it, and it was more down to their opponent giving them that many opportunities. Was it leg 17 where we had
the one leg where they both missed
ridiculous amount of darts? As you said before that, Dirt was hitting some very good stuff. And then Ryan Joyce, did anyone predict him being in the quarter-final? And then he got there, and then he had the opportunity in such a slow start in that last leg. And then Dirt found the 180, and it just took Dirt away. Generally, it's an improvement on where probably Ryan Joyce's game was to then win 2 on stage, get to quarter-finals of a TV event. However, surely he's walking away from this weekend disappointed that he's not at least in the semi-finals, because there was opportunities there.
100%. And then the next one, your boy Gob. For me, this was his best performance since coming out of hospital in Germany to beat Michael Smith 10-5. Yes, the average ended up around 92, but for 2/3 of this game, this was the best James Wade had looked since that ill-fated Euro Tour.
Yeah, look, it's mid to low 90s with a 52% checkout success. His 2-ton pluses. No 180s in there. He has lost that bit of scoring power a little bit, but he's clinical again. That double 10 is still very much his friend when he needs it. He's getting there. He's definitely on the way back up.
Yeah. And then these two, again, never disappoint. And again, a difficult game to call, Boise, because Johnny Clayton should have arguably been 4-1 up at the first break, was only 3-2. And then flip it, MVG arguably should have gone 7-4 up, missed, and then Johnny ran away with it. It was a really, really weird game to watch. They both had patches, but ultimately it was Johnny's composure that got him over the line.
Yeah, it was them patches that were key. I think it was at Sitz all as well. We saw MVG go 180 and then had 2 scores of 16 at 20 something in there or 30 something in there, and then Clayton got the crucial break then to then push on. But there were sort of spells of that throughout the day, and there was moments of brilliance, but then there was huge inconsistencies which we don't normally see with Clayton and MVG, and we definitely don't see when these two play each other. Because normally the standard when these two meet is a lot higher than probably what it produced throughout the day. But that was just the inconsistencies of those throws in there and the scoring. But Johnny Clayton just held his nerve and got over the line in what was a very topsy-turvy day. Yeah,
absolutely. And semi-final time, Dirk Van Dijvenbode against Johnny Clayton. What a belter of a game this was. And it was the over-genius who gets the better of the ferret gob, and deservedly so in this one.
Yeah, look, I thought it was a decent encounter. Dirk took his chances when he needed it. He put his foot down that little bit more. There was chances when the game was pretty even, but in those big moments towards the end, Dirk took them.
Yeah. And then the other one, again, the Iceman just getting the better of James Wade. 11-9, one break of throw in it, but just a damn good game, Boise.
Yeah, a very good game. Then it shouldn't have probably been as close. Price run away from the second interval and sort of then had control of the game and allowed Wade back in. But generally, it was a very, very good semi-final, and obviously, yes, he was coming up against Dirt or Johnny. However, you felt that this was now going to be Price's time just to go and push on, probably more convincing than what he did in that final.
Yeah. So, spoiler alert, we all know the outcome. However, before we get to it, what a final it was. Both of them gave it everything, but we spoke about it earlier. Gezi in the last leg. Dirk started off with a no trouble visit. The writing is on the wall. And the Iceman, Gadwin Price, wins the World Series of Darts final for the second time. God, and just to say, that last leg, that you know what's going to happen was there again.
Inevitable, isn't it? It's just what he does. It's ridiculous. It just has that ability. Look, it wasn't great from Dirk. He almost tried too hard. I know it's a bit of a cliche and whatever, but it just wouldn't go for him no matter what he did in that last leg. A little bit of disaster for him, but again, that's more experience for him. He's had a whirlwind 2 years, hasn't he, Dirk? Let's be fair, and a massive rise from that Grand Prix run. So will be gutted to have not won in front of his home crowd after going so close yet again. But look, Gezi was superb and thoroughly deserved that title.
Right. The other talking points from the World Series of Darts, we'll do them in orders that they happened. So, first up, first time we have got to speak to Peter Wright since the World Match Play. There were some questions. We'll listen to it first, and then we'll take away.
Yeah, a couple of things, just here and there, stuff in the back room. On the stage, I didn't think the throw was correct, and I should have said something in the beginning, but I didn't. I thought I'll just change the darts. I'll find it. You go on different throws all around the world, you find a throw, and I just couldn't find it throughout the whole match. So I was disappointed in myself. Played absolute rubbish through the whole match, and still had darts to push ahead to go and beat him. So it wasn't like, nothing head towards Dimitri. It was just like I was disappointed with myself and everything. We had discussion about it last week, and he understands, and he said stuff as well, and we're fine.
Last one for me, the Carl Anderson tribute shirt. Lovely touch, lovely design. Was that something that you wanted to do through missing out on going to Australia?
We've got the Australian shirts and New Zealand shirts that what we was going to wear in the World Series out there, and this is obviously down to Joe with the designs and everything. This Carl Anderson and his kids, hands and everything, and then we're going to auction this and hopefully raise some money for his family for Christmas, if it's to pay their bills or just to help them with a bit of food or buy some Christmas presents. But we're going to do that every single year. Make sure we're going to auction a shirt ready for their family, and hopefully we can raise some nice money for them. Just make sure that helps them over Christmas time.
2 points in there. We'll do the nice one first. What an amazing touch from Peter and Joe with the shirts and auctioning it off for Carl's family. That darts is one of those sports that when the going gets tough, it does pull together, and no more so here, Gob.
Yeah, definitely. Just wish he was raffling it and not auctioning it, because I would never get my hands on it. But if it was a couple of tickets, I might have had a crack. But yeah, fantastic. Can't say it.
The other one was an interesting one. The Dimitri fallout. We all know there was some kind of fallout that they kissed and made up on the Euro Tour, as he said, but it was a little bit jumbled, and I don't think he completely told us the truth, if I'm being honest, Boise.
I don't think he didn't tell us the truth. I just don't think he wanted to tell us everything. It's probably the way of putting it. I think probably everything he said was probably right, but he didn't want to tell us or allude to everything that probably happened in those discussions. I do think that a conversation was had between them, and there probably was a disagreement still in there, but he wants to keep part of that. And that's probably that was decided between him and Dimmy, that respectfully they wanted to keep certain things behind closed doors as such. But, it seems like they're in a better place. And I know I mentioned it last week that you do want to see that needle, you do want to see that rivalry, but actually the connection that them two had sort of through COVID, and obviously the difficult situation it was for everyone in the world, it was a good news story. As you probably alluded to there when you said that when it's tough for the darts world, they do all pull together, and that was one of the biggest examples of when that's happened. So you didn't want it that relationship to split completely, even if there is now a bit of needle between the two, which we've done a keep out for. And as I know you best, Mr. Bars, you'll still keep probing away to try and find out what was actually said.
Tell me, you're on about. My gut is it all revolves around Dimitri playing games. Pete obviously hasn't said that. He's been quite respectful there, but we all saw it, and I think it revolves around that.
Yeah, it's hard to disagree with that.
Right. This is the interesting one. this very much split social media at the weekend as well. Joe's comments. We'll play it and then we'll discuss.
Oh, it's not my problem. It's not Dave's problem. It was just a really strange one. I've just said in a previous interview. If he's playing a Dutch guy, it's not excusable. It's not anything like that. But you, as a player, you come to expect it. If you play Michael or Dirk or Danny or someone like that, you come to expect it. You know, when it comes to the crunch. But it was just weird. You know, two English guys and they'd not booed the whole game, and then all of a sudden when he has match darts, they boo. So, like I say, it's not my problem. My job is to win games, and somehow someone was looking down on me there, and I've played like an absolute idiot, but I managed to win the game. Don't know. I think if you try to do something about it, it'll take something away from the game. It's all about wherever it is. Like you say there, if it's in Germany, you're playing against a German, you come to expect it, and I'm one of the players. I like it. I enjoy it. It was a bit different tonight because obviously I didn't expect it. But if you're in Germany, you're playing, you know, Martin Schindler, Max Hopp, Gary Clemens, you come to expect it. And there's nothing better than winning the game and sticking it up them. You know, I for one, I don't mind it. But then things like tonight, it's just I'm confused, to be honest. I've come off the game feeling confused. I don't know how I won it. I don't know why they booed, but I'm into Sunday, so who cares?
Right. The bit as well where he said about obviously the Euro Tour, and he said he's in it to win as much money as he can to set his family up for a long time. The booing and that's not his problem, and he's kind of right. It's not his fault. It's not his problem. The crowd have booed Gob and give Chizzy some shit.
No, look, he hasn't caused that, and it's also not caused him any harm. In fact, it's probably earned him a few £1,000s more than it would have if Dave Chisnall had hit a double before the crowd got involved. And if that is the causation of Dave not hitting a dart at a double, I just give up the crowds right now. I want people to be better. Is that too much to ask?
Yeah. There's a couple of factors involved here. One, they're all absolutely battered.
No, because people have always drank at the darts. And 20 years ago, it wasn't anywhere near this level, was it? It's been allowed. It's been an environment that has almost been encouraged. When you're constantly billing your sport as the Christmas party and refuse to do anything about it, and then you go abroad and you think, well, actually, I've got a few more headlines here because they've done that and they've made the game go on a bit longer and the commentator's got something else to talk about and whatever. That's a bit different.
Oh yeah, I agree with you that it has been encouraged over the years, and yeah, especially
this
when
could have been 20 years ago. This could have been stamped out, and I take lockdown was the perfect time to stamp out. Post lockdown was the perfect time to stamp out because you've got 18 months, you get to completely go again. But all darts did was attract an even different crowd this time that were there for the occasion rather than the sport, because they've been denied alcohol consumption on that level for 18 months.
Well, the other one, when the split was raw, shall we say, it was almost like John Lowe against Bobby George all over again. You had one organisation that wanted the Stone Cold Silence and the Best of Order, and you wanted one that wanted the Razzmatazz, and that was how it grew and how it was built. The fact that we had Bob Anderson walking on with a horse back in the day, because it was different, and it got people.
You can have Razzmatazz without being a cock.
I'm not sure you can in the current world.
No, you can. You just can. Sing some songs, chant a bit, boo, whatever. Look, pantomime boos when players walk on. Fine, wall of noise. But it's then individual comments, the shouts and the whistles on players' pros that are an issue, that always have been an issue. And that players continue to maintain are an issue. Because look, Joe Collins has told you he loves going to Germany and then booing at him and then him sticking one up it. That's a wall of noise. That doesn't affect his throw. All that does is get you a little bit mentally. You get a little bit psyched up. You start planning how you're going to react to them. That's on you for not being able to handle it. That's completely different. That's sport. That's entertainment. You get that home and away in pretty much any sport in the world, right? You're going to take home and away crowds. Yeah, it was nearly a much more severe C word, Adrian, but I didn't check what time. It was nearly the other C word, let's be honest. But you can do all that, and you can experience all that, but it's that individual whistle, the people that are, I'm going to deliberately affect this game by my individual nonsense, and, or look at me, I'm on the telly, or did you hear me whistle at that point, or yes, I got my play. Like, bugger off.
Right. We've got 2 Gezi clips now. We'll play them both. One's from his...
Yeah, now, can we wait till 9 o'clock and then I talk about these?
One's from his Saturday night game. We'll do that one first because he talks about his focus and whatever. And then the interesting one from his winners one. So we'll do the one from Saturday first. We'll play them back to back and then do a bit on them all.
Obviously the majors come thick and fast then, so yeah, I think next year I'm gonna like sort of slow down a little bit on the property and put a little bit more into the darts. I'll still miss a couple, but I'll be more concentrated than what I have been over the last year.
I say you touched on it there. Has your focus not been fully on being Going Price, the professional darts player, because of all your other business interests?
Yeah, definitely this year, especially, you know, I've had a few projects on the go with a cafe and doing a bungalow for my dad and doing a property for myself. So when I'm away, my mind's still at home and it's hard work to try to concentrate. But yeah, sometimes it can cost you. And even though I'm trying to run a business back home, it can cost me money when I'm losing you. So yeah, I'm going to slow down a bit with that next year and put a bit more effort and a lot more concentration into the PDC.
Clip 1. Followed by clip number 2.
Yeah, I mean, it's always nice winning. Doesn't matter if it's World Series or major events. It fills you full of confidence, especially when the Grand Prix is coming up. And I know my doubles are where they should be. And yeah, if I can start off like I have in previous years in the Grand Prix, then there's no reason why I can't go and defend that. I think I've had a decent year considering that I haven't been at my best. And yeah, it's a lot of good things to come now. There's a big tournaments coming up towards the end of the year. And like I said, I've been rubbish most of this year, but I've still been doing all right. I reckon in 3 years' time, I'll pretty much be unbeatable. I mean, everybody else that's here now is all experienced. Michael Smith, Michael Van Gerwen, Johnny done a lot of BDO and Wales stuff there. So I'm really new to this compared to all those. So another 3 years where I can improve a lot more, and yeah, I'll be very tough to beat.
The Iceman never disappoints, does he, in an interview, boys? There's always something to discuss, and I bloomin' love it. We'll do the first one first. It was actually refreshing to hear players talk honestly and say, look, I haven't given darts everything this year. I have had other business interests and commitments voiced in, and that's actually quite refreshing that they put their hands up and said, yeah, look, this is the case.
Yeah, it's refreshing, and also it's not from a sort of us looking in. It's not that we're now expecting Price to then go on and compete with everything. He did mention there that he's still going to miss a couple. It's the fact that if he's been honest, I don't think he's been at 100% when he's been in the main tournaments. Yes, you come into some of these and he's not fully at 100%, and you're not down to be throughout the full year. But it's actually been at some of the big events where Price hasn't been 100% Price and going on to push on down and lift the title. Yeah, he got to the final in match play, but then that extra few percent, how close he was to beating Michael and the lead he had, probably to the dime over the line. It just goes back to, with his concentration being on this, he's even right now in the top 3 in the world in regards to current form. Yes, I know he's ranked world number 1, but he's number 3 in the world. If his focus turns more to PDC action, that just means we need Michael to step it up a little bit more. And then the question marks probably come on Peter in regards to how much more Peter can do, because actually he's probably someone who's going to do less events and someone who has done all of them over the past few years, but actually we're going to see less from him. So it's a worrying sign for the rest of the field. I also think there's a little bit of a dig in there at Johnny Clayton. He talks about the experience of all players on the PDC stage. Johnny Clayton's won an awful lot over the past 2 years, and the only thing he mentions about you is his BDO days. I think there's a little dig in there with Johnny. Obviously, all good humour between the two.
Now, God, the interesting one is, if he's not developed yet, can he play on the dev tour?
1 minute past. Don't make me say it. We will get demonetized.
But it's interesting that he talks about that he is right, that he is still inexperienced at this level compared to everyone else. 3 years' time, untouchable?
At this level, look, but how much does the level below really count for a lot? Because we've seen Peter Wright come into his element later in his years. We've seen Glenn Durrant have a peak this late in his career, where he had 10 years off previously before he went on that surge on the PDC. Then you've got youth players. Who was it? Was it Bielecki that only picked up darts at 15?
No, was it Gaulas?
Gaulas picked up darts 3 years ago and was in a World Youth final. All right, big difference between Adam Gaulas and Gerwin Price, but I'm not sure all experience is all it's cracked up to be.
Well, my interesting one with Gezi is how long is he going to be around for? As in, he's openly said he doesn't plan to do this long term. It is get in, make as much money as he can, set himself up, and get out. So over the next 3 years, if he can add another world title, 5 or 6 different TV titles, he's almost there. He's almost set. Because with it's not just the prize money, it's everything that comes with it. Your sponsorships on top for being a double world champion, or if he wins the Premier League, the match play does the triple crown gob. It's another thing to his bow. I think on that, over those 3 years, he could set himself. Over those 3 years, he could set himself.
He could, but when he's talking about being unbeatable, you've mentioned there within the next 3 years, do we expect probably Price to pick up one more world title, 5 or 6 TV titles? Yeah, someone being unbeatable, I want to see him going back to back, and we're talking about him like we are the same as many of the other world champions who've done back to back. In reeling off a run that we saw from MVG 5 or 6 years ago, ones we saw from Taylor, obviously back in the day. For me, when he's talking about being unbeatable, that's probably not achievable in the current game in regards to over a few months because of all the events you have and Pro Tours. But for him to go on and pick up 3, 4 of the big ones consistently across a number of years, it's going to be very, very difficult for him to do. I think he can obviously pick up another world championship, and he's one of the favourites to do so this year, and 5 or 6 more TV titles. But the word unbeatable is a bit different than just winning a world championship and 5 or 6 TV titles. It's going on to win an awful lot more than that over 3 years.
Evening, Rob. Hope you are good, mate. Stack Attack in the chat room. Yeah, look, it's interesting that Gezi is still relatively young, and he breaks the mould, Gob, as well. He doesn't look like your traditional dart player. He really could be the poster boy for the next 5 or 6 years in changing the look of the sport as well.
Yeah. In terms of relatively young, though, James Wade threatened to retire 3 months ago, and they're the same age.
Yeah, but James has been playing for 3 decades.
Let's put that bit into context. But yeah, look, 100%. There is absolutely no secret that the image and your standard dart player is beginning to change. Peter Wright's lost a bit of weight. James Wade looks like he's lost a bit of weight as well. Van Gogh wasn't your traditional round-bellied man. Look, you've got Cullen, Price, Luke Humphreys looks fantastic. Dimitri Van den Berg, Dirk van Dijvenbode, all these guys on the up. Rob Cross, year on tour, decided he had to get back in shape. These are athletes now. They're not... 20, 30 years ago, darts, pub sport, rocker, you just get pissed, right? These are athletes now.
Yeah, completely.
Somehow.
And look,
They all
look, I know it's a very taboo subject, but
sumo
I'm
wrestlers
going
are
to.
physically fit to be a sumo wrestler. The majority of
Look,
dart
I know
players are fit to be dart players. And that involves
Look, I
a
know-
lot of travelling, lots of playing, and for most, it involves a very, very capable liver.
Look, I know it's a very taboo subject, but I'm just going to come out and say it. The ones that overconsume in the next 5 to 6 years will get found out even more because of the way it is changing. Yes, it will.
Yeah,
Yes, it will always be there. It will always be there. I get that, but the levels of consumption is going down at the top end, and the ones
Yeah,
that
that's just my
overconsume.
point on the athletes, as Dobbs alluding to, that there's still question marks around some, and I think we will see it drop, and it is dropping. I would like to see it more.
Oh, 100%.
It's just what impact that has on the standard of the game
Yeah,
in
but
the short term.
we-
Long term, I don't think it would, but short term, I think we may see if something like that was to come in.
I don't. If it were to come in, I think short term it would drop between 3 and 6 months, whilst players adapted. But long term, I think it would help and it would raise the standard, because you look at something like the UK Open or even this one this weekend. If you're in the practice room at 10 in the morning to start at 1, and you're still going at the final at 10 at night, that is almost impossible to control if you are certain players.
Yeah, I think we see that.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. When you see the drop off from someone averaging 104 to 88 in the space of a few hours, there's probably a reason.
I think that's a great job, personally. What's the
Right.
Anyone?
Moving on to the Challenge Tour weekend. Before we do that, everyone in the chat room have been absolutely on fire today. I appreciate your support. Remember, make sure you drop us a like and subscribe to the channel. First of all, looking at the Challenge Tour Order of Merit, we've got some funky new colours on Darts rankings. We've got a pink and a pinky yellow. Forget your greens.
Something new and not what they describe this 1960s colourway, but yeah, carry on.
So first up, I know he's in the chat room, but Stack Attack Robert Owen takes the first Challenge Tour of the weekend, defeating Christian Kist in the final. And before we touch on the winner, I've got to say the quarterfinals has a very Super Series feel to it, doesn't it? Did I say that out loud?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm sat in a certain press room when I'm hearing stuff like that. There'll be someone else in my ear saying something else about the Super Series.
Is that day I wasn't there by any chance?
Yeah, it might be.
But look, Stack Attack defeats Christian Kist in the final, 94.5 average nearly 96 to beat Robert Thornton in the semis. 97 to beat Matty Dennett in the quarters. A very consistent Robert Owen boys in Challenge Tour 16.
Solid. What is it that he keeps being referred to as? The hybrid modern darts player. Not quite a full-time PDC pro, but here, there, and everywhere.
Yeah. Now, he's in the chat room. Rob, you can take the fifth on this if you wish. If you win your card and you're not playing as much because you can only play in Pro Tours and that, are you at a disadvantage because your form is superb at the moment because you can play in so much? Where John O'Shea talked about it last week, because he hasn't qualified for the Euro Tours, what was it, 70, 78 days without playing?
75, yeah.
75. Yeah. It's a long time without competitive darts for tour card holders. But also plus points for here. I know he goes on, spoiler alert, he wins one later on as well, but good to see Christian Kist back playing well.
The lipstick. What a terrible nickname.
Oh, horrific.
That era was dreadful for Dutch nicknames. Him and the coat.
Yeah, shocking.
Jan Becker. Terrible.
Yeah. Well, happy days, Rob. Happy days. Good to see Fabian Schmutzler playing again as well. Someone that had a lot of bidding this time last year, massively broke onto the scene, got to the Worlds, found it tough going this year, but get to the last 16 of a Challenge Tour, and the fact he's travelled as well is a very good sign.
Yeah, very good time for someone, as you've said, just broke on to the scene. Didn't know a huge amount about him until he won, was it 2 events, won back-to-back or finals in the
Dev
Tour?
He turned 16 and then went and blitzed the Dev Tour in a weekend and qualified for the Worlds.
Yeah,
That's why we didn't know an awful lot about him, because he wasn't old enough. He wasn't eligible. The kid's still 17.
Yeah.
We expected him to go to the World Championship and be making the quarterfinals because he'd had a good run on the European Dev Tour. I was like, Jesus, when we think back at it, that's a lot of pressure on a young lad's shoulder that, unlike the rest of the
He
field,
performed well enough, that's why we did, Dob. His performances in winning them Dev Tours was unreal.
they were unbelievable. But it's not as if he can rely on certain substances up on stage, is it?
Yeah.
True. Very true.
Well,
Good seeing back, though.
Then moving on to CT17 was a Dutch winner. Wesley Placier defeated Robert Thornton again. Look, Robert Thornton was close, but without winning one. But we've seen Wesley do good bits on the Euro Tour this year, boys. He can play, and he's backed it up with a title here.
Yeah, we've seen him. You know, he's within the top 16 of the rankings. He's generally had a few good runs, and he backed it up with a win over the Fawn, who was arguably the best player on Friday, but wasn't able to pick up a title down to a semi-final and a final. But don't let his hands on just one of those. Did he lose to Bob Owen in that? Yeah, losing to both eventual winners. And generally played well across there, the form, which is worrying signs for everyone else in the Super Series, in the seniors, in anything else that the form plays in at the moment that he's challenged Tour. But yeah, Wesley, that over the line, and Thornton just dropped off in that final. From the levels he'd performed throughout the day, and was probably just one down too far for him.
Yeah, I agree. I'm going to have to whip through this because it's a busy time. Challenge Tour 18. It was an all-Dutch final in this one, Gob. Dutch delight.
Yeah. Van der Velde's a name that keeps popping up on a development tour as well. Another exciting young Dutch prospect. It's all about how they take that next step, because we've seen so many of these guys now in the last couple of years come around, be there or thereabouts. I think the biggest warning perhaps is JDZ, Jeffrey Desvan, who did make that next step onto the Pro Tour, etc., and really struggle with it. But at various levels, we've sort of seen everybody else do the same, and it's about how they can commit and move forward. But like, he looks a great talent, good win, comfortable win over Alan Tabban in the quarterfinals, who looked like he had a great weekend as well, by the way. Dave Pallett in the top 16 as well. That takes some doing the way Dave Pallett played in Portsmouth the other week.
Yeah, and like we say, it's also no coincidence that Graham Usher gets to a semi-final as well. A man that I didn't know a lot about until we saw him at the Live League and then in the Super Series, but you can't help but be impressed with the gambler. Great attitude, great guy, and I hope he goes on and does really well.
Just such an easy throw as well, isn't it? There's no effort to it.
No. Moving on, Challenge Tour 19. It was a busy time. But again, Christian Kiss defeats Danny Lauby in the final. The lipstick backs it up. Good to see Danny Lauby making the trip as well and getting to a final. Sedlacek in and around it as well. Kofan Young. But importantly for me, 2 Frenchmen in the quarterfinals. Boise strengthening that call to give them a World Cup place.
Yeah, it strengthens it in the fact that we know that the PDC don't have a rule where there has to be a tour card holder in there, as we've seen with some pits that they had this year. And then what Thibaut done at the late side in April and what we've seen him do before, there was a lot of talk about the French Havana team. And it was just having someone there to sort of be with him and back him up in that argument, and to have 2 players in a Challenge Tour quarterfinal is certainly steps in the right direction for the French team. Hopefully we'll see a few more players come on. Generally, the weekend in the last 8 was very Dutch heavy. It'd be nice to see a few more Frenchmen in there, and I don't know anyone who's against us having a French team in the World Cup. Only if a rule was brought in that one has to be a tour card holder. But if you're picking 32 countries or 24, whatever number is 32, isn't it? The French have to be in there.
Oh, completely. Absolutely. And then Challenge Tour 20. It wouldn't have been a Challenge Tour weekend if the Maverick himself didn't pick up one. Scott Williams beats Thibaut Tricol in the final. And that pretty much cements Scott Williams' place at the top of the Challenge Tour order of merit. There is an asterisk because of other things, which we'll talk about in a minute. But God, it wouldn't have been a weekend without Williams picking up a title.
Not the year that he's had so far. He's looked absolutely superb. I mean, there's still potentially $8,000 for one person with 4 events to go, but the way that the titles have been spread around so far, how difficult and how long these weekends are, it's been incredibly difficult for anybody to be dominant over an entire day or 2 days or whatever. So, yeah, look, it's a solid job done for Scott Williams so far. I can't quite relax just yet, although he is potentially looking at gaining his card other routes, as is Sedlacek, I think, in that, or qualifying for the Worlds 1 or 2. I'm still not sure about them colours. Yeah, look, Scott Williams probably is the standout deserving of a tour card next year from a player that doesn't have one right now, that is committed to the PDC. He's been here, there, and everywhere, and he's performed to a very, very good level. He beat the world champion on the Pro Tour the other week, for Christ's sake. There's not many that just rock up and do that. But yeah, look, a few others to talk about at that point. Dan Reed going deep, looking like his B game is just getting that little bit more solid through the Super Series now. Still need to see his A game out a little bit more. Trico in a final. Good to see him there. And the fact he's gone deep twice in 2 events is really, really good. But the exciting thing for me is the level of performance from Labra the day before.
Yeah.
Because his A game seemed to find another level. And that's really encouraging, because we all know what Thibaut Tricol is capable of at both ends of the spectrum. His A game is very, very good. He's French number 1 and carries an awful lot, but he's also got an absolute stinker in him, and that's probably why he still finds himself on the Challenge Tour, didn't quite go all the way at Lakeside or whatever. He's got that little bit of a down part of his game there still. But Ladbrokes is a name that we literally have seen pop up for the last couple of months, and his A game is getting better and better and better. More of those 95 plus averages, that consistent level. To do that twice in 3 rounds is very, very good. So yeah, like, jumping on that French bandwagon as well. If they're not in the World Cup next year, somebody wants to shoot them because they are stupid.
So, top of the Challenge Tour order of merit, as we said, Scott Williams is in a league of his own right now. Robert Owen second, Danny Mantripe third, Stephen Burton fourth, and you'd expect those 4 to play in pretty much all of the Pro Tours as well between now and the end of the year, because I can't see them being full for different reasons. So those 4 look set to continue on the Pro Tour as well. So that was the Challenge Tour. Right. Here we go. Here's the interesting one of the night. The WDF actually put some information in very inverted brackets. And the timing of this announcement for me is very, very interesting. Right, my thoughts. First of all, one on the timing. It seemed for me that this is very rushed because, let's be fair, last week the WDF took a battering on social media from players and managers about the lack of information to the players. We saw Lorraine Winstanley have a pop, Jim McEwen very vocal, Will Adamson, one of the managers of the players that are involved in this as well, very vocal. So I think this has been done on a bit of a hop because of the battering they took. And the interesting bit for me, the timing of it, Gob, literally went out as the World Series was starting on Friday, as if to, we'll put it out and we'll try and bury it.
Yeah, someone's got that scheduling a little bit wrong, in my opinion. Bad timing, just as that's going live. It's busy traffic-wise, so I understand why you're trying to hit that 6 p.m. slot on social media. It's that post-work rush that you're trying to catch. You go 6, you go at 8. You're in social media, you know those sounds pretty much. I understand why they've gone that time, but to go and chuck it out while a PDC and TV event on, yes, you've got a few people, more people looking at socials perhaps, but it just felt a little bit weird because there's a tension elsewhere in that. People are talking about results and whatever. They might throw away a comment on that, but nowhere near as much to the level as you want eyes on an announcement like that. Or I say announcement, I should put some quotation marks. There wasn't a lot we didn't already know.
Yeah, well, Boyce, I'm going to let you come in here as well because you've covered the WDF a lot for us this year, and I think your tweet was shocking announcement.
Yeah. Pre-Friday, on the website, it's already adding the WDF on their website. At WDF World Masters, it had the 8th to the 11th, I believe. That's now changed to the 12th. It didn't mention the World Open. It didn't mention the World Championship qualifiers or the World Paradarts. However, I'm not sure what else from this statement that we've actually gained. We don't know format, don't know prize money. Yes, there's a group stage. We know a list of qualifiers, but I'm not sure how they've got to all those list of qualifiers. There's no TV announcement. All of this is for a tournament that's one for a lot of the qualifiers. They need to fly there. It's 2 weeks before Christmas. It's less than 3 months away. The list sort of goes on. There's a World Championship qualifier, but we're not sure when the World Championship is, so people don't know when they're qualifying for. If there's that conversation around people going for a tour card, we're qualifying for the World Championship and spending another day in Holland, but actually, do they even want to qualify to the one of them push on for it? So I thought the list of questions go on, which is for me why I ended my tweet with shocking announcement, because there shouldn't be more questions on the back of these sort of announcements. There can be debates about why they've made certain decisions, i.e. to change the format. But to run this tournament over as many days of what they have done as well, the cost of this, of the timing of the year it is, I just find it very, very, very strange, very rushed, and very concerned about the WDF. When for me, there's an opportunity here that the ADC made an announcement, what was it, about 2 weeks ago, that they wasn't running their Open, and that Open was planned to be the week before this. So there's an opportunity there for the amateur game to really push the World Masters and all the qualification around that. But just over 2 months away from it, we've only just found out who's qualified or how you qualify for it. But players have been playing in tournaments all year round. It's just mental. I can carry on ranting for probably another half hour on this matter because I just find it very strange, especially the position of where the WDF is right now, and the fact that they only have, in theory, 2 TV events. We're not actually sure if this is now a TV event, as they haven't mentioned it, but they only really have 2 TV events that we know of in the Masters and the Worlds, and we don't even know if it's going to be aired, which is probably a perfect opportunity for a WDF event because it finishes 2 days before the World Championships. So people are then excited about watching the PDC World Championships, and we moan sometimes about when Lightside has been, that it's a prime opportunity for darts fans to sort of build that excitement up for the biggest event of the year. You've got a bit of darts on your TV screen, well, you hope you have, but we have no idea. Just so much wrong with it, and I do think we'll have a drop in players because of that.
Well, again, the interesting bit for me is, one, obviously there was a lot of people, once this was announced, went and priced it up, Gob, as well. And look, we are in the middle of a cost of living crisis. Let's have that correct, not just in the UK, but across Europe as well. And for the amateur player, just on travel and accommodation, this isn't living whilst you're over there, you're looking at around £1,600 just to get there and have a roof over your head. In a cost of living crisis just before Christmas, is that viable?
Potentially not, but at the same time, we constantly ask other nations to make that journey to the UK that's always sort of been the home of darts as well. So somebody somewhere has to pay that cost because darts this is an international event.
But
so
even
whilst I get why
but the hotel
UK
costs
players
are the same for anyone.
Yeah, but at 2 months' notice, that's a big cost. With a year's notice, not a big.
Yeah, I agree. That's a fair point.
Not a big cost, but you can save for it. You can make allowances for it. You can make plans for it.
Yeah.
You can build up prize money for it, and whatever else. There's ways to accumulate funds for it and whatever else. So, more notice, it's certainly more manageable, especially in a cost of living crisis and whatever. For me, this announcement is all about what it doesn't say. The absence of a decision, not even a decision. This is the oldest major in the world, with one of the most recognizable formats in the world. The website, we're being told by some, potentially has a different placeholder on the minute as a standard template for their website to go back to leg play. We've heard conversations from a couple of people that they've also been told the format is changing. Right, I'm not going to throw any of them under the bus or anything, but they've been told that as well. If you know, in the oldest tournament, surely just go and to confirm the format will be the same as it's always ever been. We got a nod to how big groups would be, but no, they'll be playing over this format or anything like that, and it just screams that a big change is about to be made. When the WDF returned to Lakeside for a World Championship earlier this year, I was a very, very big advocate of it. Anyone that sat and watched the show will know that. For me, they had to exist, they had to succeed, and getting off the ground for them was more important than anything else. But because of the reputation of the BDO, and because, for me, this organisation hasn't moved far enough away from that, it's just a redressing of name, etc. They could have gone out and made massive changes and whatever. Haven't really decided to do that because you're always going to get reluctance to change, and that will cause bad press. I just think they're obsessed with no bad press right now. And any sort of negative feedback they might get, any sort of negative connotation, anything that might get thrown around a little bit, coming directly from them is more of a concern than people gossiping and going, well, where is the information?
Yeah, completely. Like we say, the players still don't know how much money they're playing for. Players have spent a lot of money and put thousands of pounds into qualifying for these events, and they don't know what they're playing for in return 2 months away. It's ridiculous. And like you say,
in addition to that,
they're expensive. Costs are very expensive, and as a new organisation that perhaps didn't make the money it needed to at Lakeside or whatever else, costs are going to be tight. But when you're launching like this in what is now becoming a very, very saturated market for tournament organisers and whatever else, and you've had such a bad history, the first thing an organisation like this should have gone and done is hire a PR agent. Somebody that knows what they're doing to just make you look good and manage these internal conversations and difficulties in what you do announce, what you don't announce, how you keep people on side. Because that's exactly what the BDO didn't do. And they don't have a media team that can match the depths of the PDC or whatever other sports you've got in the world, the FA or football clubs or anything like that. How I've seen a National League football team have 4 people employed in their social media team. That's the 5th tier of English football. This is the worldwide governing body recognised by the IOC. Go and hire people that know what they're doing, get you off the ground and recuperate them costs at a later date.
Yeah, look, I just don't get it at the moment. I really don't. And obviously there was a lot of talk earlier on in the week around the two, I put televised in brackets, tournaments that, again, we still don't know. And there was a question, I think, from Robbo in the chat room. We don't know if this will be televised. There was nothing in the announcement to say it was or isn't. So look, we don't know. And if it's not, what a hammer blow that is as well. But in effect, it's just one TV tournament a year for the WDF.
Yeah, so
At the minute, we know
huge.
when and where. That's it.
Yeah. I was just saying it's a huge hammer blow. And back to the point of, with it not being on TV, you'd then expect to drop in the prize fund, potentially. And then with a drop in the prize fund, there is a number of players. And yet it's a bid field, or they're hoping for a bid field. But the top echelon of the WDF, if you're looking at the rankings, a lot of those players would probably be better off that week going to play in the Super Series than they would going to play in the World Masters. If you take away the iconicness of the World Masters, because we had John on last week who was talking about the World Masters and what we should be playing for and all that sort of thing. But for a tournament and being your second biggest of the year, there's got to be a good monetary value in there as well to win, as well as lifting that title. And that is across the board. And I worry about that on the basis that that's not been announced, because that players need to know that before the travel. I think we'll see a lot of players not travel if that announcement is kept till last minute, because some players either can't afford to risk it or won't want to take that risk because of the amount of money. But did you mention now 1,600, give or take, for your expenses for before
flights and accommodation? That's not living whilst you're there. Eat, food, drink.
So let's say between 1,500 and 2,000 when you look at the players who are already over there, who live in Holland, who don't have to pay for flights. When you then add your food, drink, everything else probably as part of that, without knowing what you can potentially win. I'd like to say that's the biggest disappointment, but there's a list of things in the announcement that are up there, so it's hard to sort of pick one out. But I do worry, and one of which for me is the TV. the fact we don't know if it's on TV. A lot of players have gone to events throughout the year to make sure they're qualifying to be on TV. For players, it's about the sponsorship. You know, they would be expecting the World Masters to be on TV. If you then sold the sponsorship and you're not going to be on it, it's then disappointment across the board. And as you mentioned, one of the managers has already complained on social media, and I'm sure he won't be the only one, if we don't see more of an announcement.
Well, I thought it was interesting that Lorraine's interview on the Inside the WDF podcast, the fact that she come out and said, I have emailed them multiple times and I've had nothing. The fact that if you just put it on social media asking, a bit different, but the fact you've actually emailed the association to ask and had nothing. We saw at the weekend with the PDC, with the posters everywhere for next year's tickets for the World Series finals going back to Amsterdam. So already people can register their pre-interest for next year's tickets. It's a year away.
Well, as of next week, you can get World's tickets, Masters tickets, probably both Minehead because they're sold through Minehead and the World
Premier
Series
League.
And Premier League. So the thing it is, and it's Blackpool, they tend to go on sale at Christmas because if you have both of them clashing with each other, then you can pick it up. You wait for the next big one.
Yeah. And look, there was a lot banded around in forums of the World Championship date. We won't go into that because we don't know. But even if it's in January or that alleged slot that everyone was saying, it leaves you no time to sell tickets.
Everybody loses.
Well, everyone, and mainly the players.
Yeah.
Let's be fair, it's a really shit situation for the players right now.
And it leads back to what we've said for the past, probably the month where we've been debating the amateur game over the past few Mondays, is it's all down to one word, and it's just communication, where we've now got a communication from the WDF, but doesn't give us any information that, from a media perspective, we would like to know, but from a player's perspective, they have to know. It's their careers, it's their livelihoods, and they don't know that information. That's the most shocking part, is the communication is so bad.
Well, the thing is, right, if you're one of the top players in the WDF, right now you are planning your next 3 to 4 months of your darting career. And certain players will have a decision to make, regardless of when the tournament lands, around Q School. Because there's a very good chance it will either clash or be after Q School. Look, just looking at the dates, it will either clash with Q School or be after. It can't be before. Looking at the dates available. So as a player, you have to plan and make your decisions what's best for your career. And let's be fair, the PDC will probably open the Q School registration in the next few weeks. It's normally around this sort of time that it opens.
It's expensive, isn't it? It's expensive. It's got to be open soon.
Yeah. And if you're a player, if Q School opens and you've got no dates for the other one, what are you going to do?
You're serious about playing pro, and you go Q School, don't you? So
exactly that.
I guess it's another one we have to wait to play out in the next couple of weeks. So.
Yeah, massively. So that was that one. Right, there was also something groundbreaking at the weekend, boys. Something a little bit positive. We've not seen it before. We may not see it again. But at the Super Series, the first ever televised 3-player 9-dart shootout on TV.
I was beginning to think it wouldn't happen because basically you just need to get everybody beating everybody by the same scoreline, don't you? You just need a 4-2 win, 4-2 win, and a 4-2 win. But
4-2. Yeah. Well, again, going into the last game, Ryan Finesse had to win 4-3 to force the 9-dart shootout. And guess what Ryan Finesse did? And as a little treat, we are going to show you the entirety of the Super Series 9-dart shootout, and we'll discuss afterwards.
Lee Shewan will throw first. He'll have 3 darts. Then it will be Andy. Then it will be Ryan.
100.
Ryan won the bull off in the practice room. He chose to throw last. Andy then chose to throw second. Lee Shewan had no option but to throw first. And Lee starts strongly, but not as strong as Andy.
140.
Terrific start. Finesse under the pump from the very off.
Remember, it is the 2 players with the highest scores from the 9 darts that progress, so the lowest scorer will be eliminated.
And the highest will win the group. Finesse behind after the first visit.
100.
Shewan's in good shape. 2 tons is very good in this spot. It is conceivable that Ryan Finesse may be too far behind when it comes to his 3rd visit. His 2nd visit is going to have to be really interesting.
81.
At an absolute minimum now, Finesse needs a 140.
The only person who has been in a 9-dart shootout before is Andy Hamilton. He's won 1 and lost 1. From Finesse at 180 in the shootout, and he takes the lead.
He's now the favourite, and that's a single 1 from Shewan. But that's a big treble 20. But it's a slip with the last dart. And so Andy Hamilton now only needs 46 points to progress.
Shewan can do nothing. $46 points to give him a 1-point buffer. Hamilton has made it. Finesse is also there. Lee Shewan is out. And Ryan Finesse wins the group in the 9-dart shootout. That was thrilling. Wow, Henry, what do you make of that?
I loved watching that back.
I love that sort
Yeah,
of
I've
stuff.
seen it more than once.
I want it to slam every single year. It's just that little bit more drama, isn't it?
Yeah. Again, the Ryan Finesse fan club were in as well with that 180, because at that point, he was miles behind.
Big trouble. Big trouble.
Yeah. Tiz says, what a great moment. Johnny says, sorry, but shootout's a ridiculous way to do it. Johnny, there's only 2 ways to do it. You either do it on their averages or you do a shootout. And the shootout for me is the much better option. When they're all level, that's the only way you can do it, is a shootout, or you do it on their averages. And this creates drama. I think the players enjoyed it more as well. Even Lee said it was a better way to do it, and he lost out because fate is in your own hands. You have 9 darts to get yourself through. As a player, I think that's the better way of doing it, because you're in control of your own destiny.
Yeah, I think most players would agree with it as well.
No, Charlie, we're going to talk about that in a minute. Whilst we're on the Super Series, there was a lot made of the Danny Lauby phantom dart, phantom throw, whatever you want to call it. Look, watching it back, it was Danny Lauby dropped it and then retrieved his darts. He's gone and done it. He's retrieved it. There's not much more that Paul Higgins can do, in my opinion, boys. Although I agree with everyone, he hasn't thrown it. Danny is the one that has picked it up and retrieved his darts.
Yeah,
Yep.
I think that's the case. Danny being in a situation where he's concerned that he may have thrown it or be classed as a throw and worried about the repercussions. Bless him. He's definitely not throwing a dart. It's definitely a drop. All the ruling and the guidelines and 5.22, I think, was the ruling that Chris Murphy quoted directly, it's an overarm deliberate action. That was neither of them. But Danny's retrieved the darts from the board, and once he's done that, the visit's over.
Yeah, 100%. But drama at the Super Series at the weekend, it was absolutely mint. Right, a week in darts, boys, before we open question time. What have we missed? Because we always miss something, let's be fair.
The entire British Open.
Yeah.
Good point. I didn't see any of it, I'm not going to lie, because I was in Amsterdam.
Me neither. I don't know much about the trialists. I think both the men's got in, so James Richardson and James Hull. James Richardson had a fantastic weekend, let's be honest. The England men's international trial, he got beat in the final, but I think that still gets him into the team. Joanne Locke won the ladies against Raymond Stanley. In the men's pairs, James and Josh Richardson won the final 3-0 against Ryan de Vrede and Van Leeuwen. In the ladies' pairs, good luck stopping these two. It was Beau Greaves and Dieter Hedman winning. British Classic men's result, James Richardson again the winner, 6-4 over Gary Stone. Solid win for him. British Ladies Classic, Beau Greaves.
Well, on that one, you said about his weekend, that was from behind as well. I believe he was 3-1 down, maybe even 4-1 down. And then Gary Stone, James Richardson and Tainbach and reeled off. And the reaction at the end, if you've yet to see, is a big reaction that sums up a huge weekend for Richardson.
Is that when he was directing Vindaloo traffic on the stage?
Just a little, yeah. That was the one.
British Open, Reece Colley the winner against Chris Landman. Superb run for him, the youngster, another player of former Super Series prowess. Win for Lisa Ashton in the British Open ladies. And then in the Classic Youth, Thomas Banks beating Archie Self. Good runs for Henry Coates to the semi-finals as well, who also, at 16, 17 years old, made the quarterfinals of the British Open men's as well. He's only just old enough to be on the development tour. Made his debut at the last batch of events, and he's making the last 8 of the British Open. So superb run from him. And Lila lately beating Eleanor Cairns in the British Girls Consolation as well. So that's all the results from that one.
In the Classic Ladies, Beau won. Dob, I think you just missed it when he was running for it. Beau beat Lisa in that one, in a reverse of what happened in the Open. And as part of Lisa's Open win, she averaged 105 in the quarterfinals, which is fantastic on the long field. Yeah, and the round before that, I believe she beat Beau. Just checking, yeah, she beat Beau 4-1. So Lisa got the better of Beau in one tournament, and Beau got the better of Lisa in the other one.
I suppose that great that they were all playing up in Bridlington, but I'm guessing the slight damper or negative, which was again made a lot of on social, the lack of numbers compared to normal for what was a flagship event.
Yeah, it'd have been interesting to be up there as well on the Friday, Saturday, even more so with the announcement on the Thursday, the Masters, just to see how the general feel was in the room. And probably that lack communication has had an impact on that. So probably no real surprise.
Yeah. Charlie's there said it. Thomas Banks hit a 9 darter in the youth too. Again, didn't see it, but saw it on Twitter.
Oh, we missed Lucas Maining's one in the challenge.
I didn't even know he'd hit one, if I'm being honest.
18, I think, or 19 in the afternoon.
Lee says, any more clues about who the new commentator is later in the week? I know, but I'm not telling you.
I'll give you the same clue that Murph Dave. He's better than me at darts.
Can you tell me who it is, and I'll let you know if they're better than me at darts?
They're better than you at darts as well, Dob.
I doubt it. I'm the best.
Oh no, they are.
If it's on, isn't it? Yeah, they are. They 100% are.
Did they do it on a cold, wet Wednesday in the Vodka Wednesday League?
Oh, 100%.
Well, only you can do that.
Exactly.
Um, so
You've either
yeah,
got it or you went. Some people just can't handle the atmosphere.
anyway, to be fair, after that video, you can't talk about crowd barracking ever again either.
They weren't there. There was no crowd to barrack. That was 6:30. They didn't arrive till 8:15. We were just having a sing-song.
So, question time it is then, boys, I think. Don't think we've missed anything else out, have we?
Only other thing was the announcement this afternoon, I want to say. Late evening was around the pre-qualified players for the World Youth Championships, which includes Katie Sheldon and Chloe O'Brien within those, which for me is fantastic to see. Disappointing to see that Beau didn't accept her invite. However, from what we're seeing from Katie and Chloe over the women's series, I know the pair of you have seen a lot more than me of the women's series, but on Blackpool as well, Tantor's a few upsets, but a very strong field already.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to hear Beau's reasons for not accepting the invite.
I think it clashes with a WDF event in Ireland or Northern Ireland, is what I've seen so far. Look, to be fair, I know as we sit here, we want Beau to do absolutely everything and we want her to go and play in everything and compete and whatever else. I quite admire the fact that she is 18 and she is just playing in events that she wants and there is no pressure for her to go and do anything. We've been talking about her for the women's series for the last 5 years. Wasn't even
agreed.
5 years ago, but you know what I mean? We've been talking up Beau for a long, long time now, and now she's here. She's reigning world champion, and she will not be rushed into doing anything or anything.
No, I get that.
From a personal perspective, I think talking about how excited I am to see Katie and Chloe, it's just I would have been excited to see both competing against some of the tour card holders potentially who are in the field, some of the young up and coming players that we've seen on Challenge and Dev Tour. It's more a disappointment from a personal point of view that I'd like to have seen how she competed in that youth environment, because at the moment we don't compare her as a youth. Let's be honest, we're comparing her with Fallon and Lisa. So it'd have been nice to see her in that field and to see how she would have compared in there. That's more.
She's always guaranteed a shot
right.
until you accept, aren't you? Because of the way the groups work.
Yeah, there's going to be a seed in there.
Go in there. Your tour card holders get an invite no matter what. So they're 13 of the 16, aren't they?
14 of the 16 tour card holders, yeah. But good for Katie and Chloe. I think it would be great to see both of them in it.
Yeah. Right, so question time. And we'll go straight in with Andrew's one. Says, if you were Ross Smith needing one game at the Euro Tour Grand Prix, who would you want to draw? You probably want one of the home nation qualifiers in the first round of the Euro Tour. I don't mean that horribly, but they're not a tour card holder. They're a qualifier. You'd probably want one of them. But then flip the coin. If you're Roby John, you want him to draw someone good.
Much?
Yeah,
What is it?
I'm just looking at the field, but yeah, generally one of your host nation qualifiers.
Ping me the link.
Say it again.
In front of me. Ping me the link.
It's on its way to you now. But just at the qualifiers, associate member qualifiers, John Van Veen, and then we've got Jelle Klassen, Ice Rock Belgiums. We've got Tim Hybrex and Mike Dedecta. And Dennis Nilsson is your Nordic and Baltic qualifier. And Karol Sedlacek is your East European qualifier. So even those, you're looking at that you're in a tough time there.
There's danger there in comparison to previous, to go into one of the German ones where you not dangerous, but you've got France, Russia, or Lucas Reinig or something. Perhaps you just listed tour card holders, basically.
Yeah.
It's a very difficult field.
Look, if you're Ross Smith with the ability you've got, you'd back yourself to beat anyone.
Yeah. It's just the additional pressure that is on that one day more than he's just thrown into a first round tie, isn't it?
Yeah. But having said that, one win may not be enough for him. I know he has to win that one to give him a chance, but one win may not be enough anyway.
True.
Because oh yeah.
Could say Vincent got to the final.
Vincent, yeah.
Say Keane Barry won it. So although one win puts you in a fantastic position, it's not guaranteed. But yeah, that's that one again. Get your questions in, everyone. Pete says, do you think MVG will play at the European Tour this weekend? His last post on Twitter after Clay and Sands. No, I think he'll play. It was just a case of he knows what he needs to do to get ready for the Grand Prix. Look, from where he lives to Belgium isn't very far. He'll probably just drive, or it's an easy drive for him. So I'd expect him to play. But I think that he just knows what he needs to do to get ready for the World Grand Prix.
Practice doubles, probably.
Yeah, they've been the Achilles heel. The two tournaments he's won, his doubling's been good. The ones that he's crashed in, his doubling's been awful.
You sort of need to be good at doubles at the Grand Prix.
Adrian says, do you think Beau... Adrian says, do you think Beau will get the second spot for the Worlds of the Women's Series?
Not for me. I think probably a weekend too late.
I think she'll go close, but I just think she may have a little bit too much to do. But I think she'll give it a good go.
Yeah, she needs another perfect weekend without, and she's got the addition of a one of the top women, if not the top woman, returning. It only needs Fallon to have a win, and I think that's enough, isn't it?
Fallon needs 2,200, I think. She put it for the final.
Yeah.
1,250 would be enough, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Potentially. Depending on, yeah.
She's got to get above 8 grand, not 7. She needs 2,250.
Well, not above 8. If you won one, it'd be impossible for Beau to get that.
If she wins it, then Beau could get dropped massively, yeah.
I just think it's probably a step too much. But it'd have been interesting if Beau and Fallon would have competed all. So I think we're forgetting that Fallon missed the last 4.
Robbo says, will either Gary Anderson or James Wade make the Grand Slam to maintain their 100% record? I'd be more confident about one qualifying than the other.
Wade.
Yeah.
Be more confident about one of those turning up for the qualifier than the other.
Is the
Probably
qualifier
increases the
block
chance.
of scores as well? Because that would mean he's got to stay for the whole thing.
Knocked out early and can't get the car in.
So yeah, in fact, I think Wade has more chance. do you feel, this is from Craig, do you feel Price can win the rest of the tournaments this year the way he's playing, lads? Can he? Of course. Will he? A very, very tough ask because of the way the field, and that is that he has the ability to win them, but that would be a very, very tough thing to do. Do I think he'll win at least 1 or 2? Possibly, yeah.
The answer to me would be no, but that is because if you ask the same about Michael van Derwin, I expect Michael to pick up at least one between now and the end of the year. Can Michael don't win them all? Yeah, he can. The same's been said about Derwin and potentially even Peter Wright. Peter Wright was talking about winning them all, but
straight back in that contention. It's taken
that's
the
what
way
I'm
they're playing.
Well, I think
they didn't share them between the three of them.
Yeah, I think if you was to say who's least likely to win them all, I would probably say Peter Wright, just because I think there's just that bit more consistency in Desi and MVG. However, do I expect them all to go and pick up one? There's a very good chance. But I put Peter third in that at the moment. I put Peter third in that at the moment.
Twice since his return from Gallstones and won a Euro Tour, and the 2 matches he lost were to a 107 average and a 104 average.
Extending that out further than just pre-August, I still think MVG's. I still think MVG and Price are more likely than Peter Wright.
Like this, Big Johnny says, did we ever see Joey or Chandler using the old Blade 2 in their apartment? No, I haven't. I'm going to have to have a look. I'm going to have to search and find a picture of this now.
You won't see any darts, but they all exist in American TV shows for a very good reason.
They did play darts in one scene.
I don't watch Friends. No. But a lot of American TV shows have got them because they use them in sitcoms as a reference point for cameras, so they should always be in the same point of the screen, so they're not overshooting or undershooting the angle of the camera.
Fairs.
As a huge Friends fan, I can probably find out that episode fairly quickly, so I will find out what dartboard was being used.
Tommy says, do you think Chizzy will ever win a TV title? I'd love him to, but personally I don't. I just think the highs are high, but the dips are too low.
I said last week I really liked where his game was, but this weekend is the worst way for it to happen as well because he was so comfortable. He wasn't outplayed at any point. I don't want to say he beat himself, but he lost that game mentally. He didn't lose that game physically. And that's an issue.
Yeah. This is a good one. Says, do you guys think, looking overall at Fallon's World Series, it was a mistake putting her in overall, not for marketing purposes, but the effect it had on her game?
I don't think the effect we're perceiving it to have had on her game has been caused by playing darts. I think it was Christmas and before and the media attention, and it is fantastic that Fallon was recognised and picked up the way she was, because it did genuinely bring new supporters into the sport. People that you talk darts had only heard of Phill Taylor and Michael Van Gerwen in the most recent years, had suddenly heard of Fallon Sherrow, right? And you cannot deny the asset that was to the PDC and the game of darts. But when she wasn't achieving Q School and the like, the fact that all the attention was then still on her whilst not representing the rest of the sport became an issue for fans of the sport. Not for new audiences who are still interested in what Fallon Sherrock's doing and can she take the next step and what did she do previously and learning about the game, but for established darts fans, ones that have propped the sport up for a long, long time on TV, at events, etc. That became a big issue for a lot of darts fans, and there's still an awful lot of resentment towards Fallon for someone who did do something pretty special, something that we've never seen before in that capacity, twice in the same event. Hannah's backed it up a couple of times since on TV as well. And if you're in the same position, you take every single opportunity handed to you as well. And it's not as if she's been overly pushed from a management team or anything like that. She's just been allowed to go out and be herself. But the reporting from, in particular, Sky was disgusting, and that's done a lot of damage to the career of Balor in the last 18 months.
Charlie says, do you think the entries for Q School will be higher or lower than in recent years? For me, with all the uncertainty around, I think higher.
Higher, but only just. I think there's two ways to look at it. There's higher in regards to where the ADC and WDF announcements, tournaments are, but also the flip of that is the Super Series and people looking at that as a potential gain over a period of time. So I think it will go up because the pot in that top echelon who are playing the Super Series a lot compared to the people who go to a lot of WDF and ADC events. But I don't think there'll be a huge increase.
I think you will get an increase for a couple of reasons. One, the last couple have been under COVID conditions, or largely under COVID conditions, not necessarily this year. And two, I think you'll get a lot of players go in without the intention of being tour pros. They will have seen the opportunities Scott Williams and Robert Owen have had this year. And if you're top 20 on that, doing well on the ADC, and can play Super Series for a year as an almost apprenticeship before you step up to the PDC, I think that would suit a lot of players more. I think Rob Owen, if he's still listening, will feel a lot better going onto the PDC tour next year, having had this year underneath him, than having a really, really quiet year, played county a couple of times, maybe 2 or 3 WDF events, 20 challenge tours if he's gone to all of them, and then rocks up to Q School, wins a card and goes, right, now I've got to do this week in, week out to put food on the table for me and my family.
Yeah, agreed. Right, last couple, an absolute banging show this evening. Somebody says, do you think Beau will get a World Series invite in the future? In the next few years, no. Long term, if the women's game keeps growing the way it is, yes. Because I think the women's game will just get stronger. But in the short 2 to 3 years, I think she'd have to commit fully to the PDC tour.
It's not just about that, it's the fact that when the invites have come for, i.e. the youth, and she's not competing in that, I think that she would need to be competing in those events before the PDC would then see her go on to play at a World Series event. But she's then got to go on and achieve things within the PDC before they would just put her on. They're not going to don't put her in a World Series event for them to win a title in a different organisation or titles in a different organisation.
Yeah. Right. Last one for us before we sign off for the night. Says, do you guys think the Premier League will be exactly the same format next year?
Yes, because it's stupid.
That's the reason I brought that one in, because I knew he'd do that. I think there'll be slight tweaks to some of the bits around it, but I essentially think it will be the tournament again. I think there'll be slight tweaks within like the results and things like that.
Less is more. Too many weeks, rotate around. Watch demand go up when it returns to your city after a year break. Massive. Watch the players enjoy it more because it's not 17 weeks. Watch the ratings go up because people aren't bored of it after 7 weeks. Less is more.
But then how do you prop the Pro Tour up?
Build a venue. why the PDC don't have their own purpose-built venue with a hotel on the side, food facilities, and an exhibition centre that can be used as a mini major, which, by the way, I'm not getting into the debate of what a major is after the conversation around TV titles and James Wade and Going Price on social media earlier this week. The individual World Series events are definitely not. That's about as far as it goes. Just build yourself a venue. Chuck a few million at it. Matchroom HQ, put some snooker events in there. Do a little bit of boxing like the York Hall. Nice little intricate venue. Sound lovely. Eddie with a fancy office at the top.
There we have it, everyone. That has been the Live Lounge for this week. Thank you all very, very much for joining us. Fingers crossed, by the time we have the Live Lounge next week, we will have the World Grand Prix draw. Fingers crossed. They should know that. Well, they know who's there, so hopefully we get that on Monday. Boise looks worried.
You're just more optimistic than me.
Fingers crossed. We can only hope. Everyone. Yeah. Chat room, thank you very much for your support as always. We massively appreciate it. It's been superb. I've been Phill Bars, joined by Jack Garwood and Lee Boyce. We've been the Online Darts Live Lounge. The Super Series returns tomorrow morning, 9:30. Plenty of content coming your way, but for us, that is us signing out for this week, and we will return next week. We'll see you all very, very soon.
This is just the beginning.